So welcome all to this 123rd Interfaith Prayer and Discussion meeting that we have been having every week. And the purpose is to foster the devotional character of the society and to bring understanding among friends, the common foundation of all the religions, and remove the religious prejudice, which is one of the greatest challenges in the world to bring about peace. Today, we have our guest speaker, Tracy. Here, she is one of our strong supporters of this program. And also she is passionate about many things: sustainable living, justice for all people, including the indigenous people. So we will start with the honoring the indigenous people and the land, which will be done by Colin, and then we will go through there will be a music, 2 pieces of music, and then we will start the readings as we allocated. So I'll ask Colin to honor the indigenous people and the land.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge and appreciate that the country on which you and I live was for thousands of years cared for by the Gadigal and Bidjigal people. We know that every human being has this planet, Earth, as their home, and therefore all are connected to the land. However, I'd like to acknowledge the unique experience of the Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people by reciting the first 7 lines of a poem titled "We Are Going," written by Ujuru Nunnuku in early 1960s. The poem makes reference to a Bora ground. Bora grounds are Aboriginal ceremonial places. These are where initiation ceremonies are performed and are often meeting places as well. A Bora ground most commonly consists of 2 circles marked by raised earth banks and connected by a path. So, beginning of "We Are Going." They came into the little town, a semi-naked band, subdued and silent, all that remained of their tribe. They came here to the place of their old Bora ground, where now the many white men hurry about like ants. Notice of the estate agent reads, "Rubbish may be tipped here." Now it covers half the traces of the old Bora ring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, precious on earth, withdraw your hands.
What's that?
From tyranny, for I have pledged myself not to forgive any man's injustice. This is my covenant, which I have irrevocably decreed in the preserved tablet, and sealed it with my seal of glory. This is my covenant, which I have irrevocably decreed in the preserved tablet, and sealed it with my seal of glory, of glory, of glory, of glory, of glory. This is my covenant.
The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Turn not, turn not, turn not away therefrom, if thou desirest me, and neglect it not, that I may confide in thee. By its aid thou shalt see with thine own eyes, and not through the eyes of others, and shalt know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Ponder this in thy heart, how it behooveth thee to be. Verily, justice is my gift to thee, and the sign of my loving kindness. Said it then, said it then, said it then before thine eyes. Said it then before thine eyes. O Son of Spirit.
Justice hath a mighty force at its command. It is none other than reward and punishment for the deeds of men. By the power of this force, the tabernacle of order is established throughout the world, causing the wicked to restrain their natures for fear of punishment. It ill beseemeth the station of man to commit tyranny. Rather it behoveth him to observe equity, and be attired with the raiment of justice under all conditions. Beseech ye the one true God, that he may, through the power of the hand of loving kindness and spiritual education, purge and purify certain souls from the defilement of evil passions and corrupt desires, that perchance the evidences of injustice may be blotted out, and the splendor of the light of justice may shed its radiance upon the whole world. Tablets of Baha'i.
He is not thereby just, because he hastily arbitrates. The wise man should investigate both right and wrong. The intelligent man leads others not falsely, but lawfully and impartially. Buddhism, the Dhammapada 14v 256, verse 256. That which is good for all and anyone for whomsoever, that is good for me, that I hold good for self, I stood for all. Only law universe is true law. Zoroastrianism, Zendavesta. What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That is entire for art. Torah. As you desire that evils not befall thee, but to partake of all that is good, you should act in this spirit to thy subjects and to offenders. Judaism, Babylonian, Talmud, letter of Aristes.
Is it Panya?
I'm doing number 5.
Panya? Anya, are you reading number 3?
Yes. Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Okay. Do not to others what ye do not wish done to yourself, and wish for others too what ye desire and long for yourself. This is the whole of Dharma. Hinduism, Mahabharata. Masters, give unto your servants that which is just and equal, knowing that ye also have a master in heaven. Christianity, the New Testament, Colossians 4:1. O ye who believe, stand out firmly for God as witnesses to fair dealing, and let not the hatred of others to you make you swerve to wrong and depart from justice. Be just, that is next to piety and fear of God. For God is well acquainted with all that ye do. If thou judge in equity between them, for God loveth those who judge in equity. Islam, Quran 5:9-45. Thank you.
Number 4. Justice is not limited. It is a universal quality. It is open, must be carried out in all cases. From the highest to the lowest, each man has been placed in a post of honor, which he must not deserve. A humble workman who commit an injustice is as much to blame as a renowned tyrann. This we all have our choice between justice and injustice. I hope that each one of you will become just and direct your thought towards the unity of making that you will never harm your neighbor, nor speak ill of anyone, that you will respect the right of all men and be more concerned for the interests of others than for your own. This will you become torches of divine justice. This shall we rejoice in the sun of justice, which shine from the horizon of God. Abdul Baha Paritalks, p. 160.
The word of God, which the supreme pen hath recorded on the sixth leaf of the most exalted paradise, is the following. The light of men is justice. Quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. The ocean of divine wisdom surgeth within this exalted world, while the books of the world cannot contain its inner significance. Baha'u'llah.
As forgiveness is one of the attributes of the merciful one, so also is justice one of the attributes of the Lord. The tent of existence is upheld upon the pillar of justice and not upon forgiveness. So if at present the law of pardon were practiced in all countries, in a short time the world would be disordered and the foundations of human life would crumble. For example, if the governments of Europe had not withstood the notorious Attila, he would not have left a single living man. Abdul Baha.
Know thou verily that the essence of justice and the source thereof are both embodied in the ordinances prescribed by him who is the manifestation of the self of God amongst men. If you be of them that recognizes this truth, he doth verily incarnate the highest, the infallible standard of justice unto all creation. Baha'u'llah.
O God, my God, aid thou thy trusted servants to have loving and tender hearts. Help them to spread amongst all the nations of the earth the light of guidance that cometh from the company on high. Verily, thou art the strong, the powerful, the mighty, the all-subduing, the ever-giving. Verily, thou art the generous, the gentle, the tender, the most bountiful.
Thank you all for the lovely readings. Now we have our guest speaker, Tracy Didier. As I mentioned before, she is a strong supporter of our interfaith program from the very beginning. Probably we can say she was one of the founder member of this group. Tracy has spent nearly 50 years of researching multi-faith ways of being and learning, as well contributing to creating more sustainable living for all on our planet. After 40 years of using herbs, including 20 years, can you? After 40 years of using herbs, including 20 years in various clinics, she wrote a book called Sustainable Wellbeing. She has a degree in Bachelor of Health Science. She has been involved with the Women's Reconciliation Network for 25 years, helping to break the silencing of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' experience. She's a mother of 5 children and 5 grandchildren.
6 grandchildren.
Yeah, 6 grandchildren. I better change it so that next time I don't make this mistake. Children. And she has given a presentation in the past few times, once on the sustainable living, and then again about the Uluru Statement. So you can visit these websites to learn about what she does and what she is passionate about. And also, if you search Women's Reconciliation Network on website, you can find many information about the current Uluru Statement and the discussion, voice to the Parliament and the referendum and the like. So I welcome Tracy, and once again, I thank you for your continued support and also accepting to give the talk today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, definitely God loves justice. So I'm going to share my screen and just better do something first.
We have Galaxy A02. Would you say your name and from where you are? Unmute. Unmute.
I'm Octavia Zulu.
From where?
Swaziland.
Swaziland. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got the scales of justice here. So it's a fair balance. Justice is all about fair balance. Without justice, you can't sustain peace. And people don't realize there's consequences for actions. So people become more irresponsible if we don't really uphold justice. So I've got quite a few quotes tonight, from the Bible, because I've started reading it from the beginning, which is why when Siva asked to give a talk, just justice has been such a strong theme. So I'll just read out some of these. This is from Isaiah. Wash yourselves, make yourself clean, remove the evil of your deeds from before my eyes, cease to do evil, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and plead the widow's cause. From Proverbs 6:16-19, there are 6 things the Lord despises and 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. All these things lead to injustice. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but a just weight is his delight. From Proverbs 11. Proverbs 17, acquitting the guilty and condemning the innocent. The Lord detests them both. And from Micah 6:8, when he was asked, how do we please God? And he has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God. From Isaiah 51, give attention to me, my people, and give ear to me, my nation. For a law will go out from me, and I will set my justice for a light to the peoples. My righteousness draws near. My salvation has gone out, and my arms will judge the peoples. The coastlands hope for me, and for my arm they wait. And from Luke 6:37, judge not, and you'll not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. So the other thing about justice, when we seek justice in our society, we have to move away from punitive punishment and seek to practice restorative justice. That is, that we see that every single person is created by God. And even if they have done the wrong thing, that we have to do justice in a way that will bring out what is good and godly within them, rather than just hurting and punishing and maiming people so that we, get rid of our anger and hatred towards them. We actually have to find the way to bring out what is good within that person. People have to be restrained for a period of time as a consequence, but in that time, they actually should be given a chance to become a better human being. That's the purpose of justice, is actually to help us all become better human beings, better sons and daughters of God. So the start of justice, there has to be a frank acknowledgement of wrongdoings, to really accept that I have done wrong, or wrong things have been done. A person who is an intercessor between the people and God actually stands in that space of taking responsibility even for wrongdoings that they may not personally have done. So we need to be quick to repentance and saying, I'm sorry, without the demanding of forgiveness from the other. I've heard people say, oh, well, I've said sorry, but they haven't forgiven me. But that's very conditional repentance. We have to really have unconditional repentance and unconditional I'm sorry. That's really taking responsibility and allowing the person to actually, at their own time in their journey. That's their journey. If you've done something wrong, it's the person who's done wrong, and the person taking responsibility for wrong is to just be unconditional in that repentance. That's taking responsibility. So what about some injustice in Australia? As I said, I'm presenting ideas for discussion. The greatest start of injustice in this land was to say it was terra nullius, meaning land belonging to no one. That was the legal concept used by the British government to justify the settlement of Australia, because Aboriginal people actually had very strict laws that they followed. So many of their traditional stories are about justice, about how to do the right thing and the consequences for doing the wrong thing. So they had a great system of law and justice in this country. But when Cook and Phillip came, even though the king gave them instructions to make right relationships with people that they encountered here, they did not do that. So that's actually a great injustice. From the Uluru Statement, we'll just have to... Our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tribes were the first sovereign nations of the Australian continent and its adjacent islands, and possessed it under our own laws and customs. This our ancestors did according to the reckoning of our culture from the creation, according to the common law from time immemorial, and according to science more than 60,000 years ago. This sovereignty is a spiritual notion, the ancestral tie between the land or Mother Nature and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who were born therefrom, remained attached thereto, and must one day return thither to be united with our ancestors. This link is the basis of the ownership of the soil, or better, of sovereignty. It has never been ceded or extinguished and coexists with the sovereignty of the Crown. How could it be otherwise, that peoples possessed the land for 60 millennia and this sacred link disappears from world history in merely the last 200 years? With substantive constitutional change and structural reform, we believe this ancient sovereignty can shine through as a fuller expression of Australia's nationhood. So it would be an absolute travesty of justice if that great long history of relationship and being in this land and in relationship to the Creator and the land, it was just wiped out in the last 200 years. It just cannot be. Anyway, in 1836, there was when they were setting up the colony of South Australia in the British Parliament, they did this 1836 letters painted, established the province of South Australia. So there's many Aboriginal people who have lost faith in government, Australian governments and laws because of broken promises like this of the 1836 letters, dissolving of ATSIC, and also which was a basis for self-determination and making organisations at a local level which serviced local Aboriginal people. That was dissolved in 2010. Then a Congress was established in 2013. But the incoming Liberal government defunded it because it was making, advocating justice for Aboriginal people, among other things. So the king actually recognised, in 1834, they had one started by trying to say that there was no one in South Australia, and then they realised, well, they can't say that anymore. So they actually said in 1836 this was what the King William, released to get his approval to establish the province of South Australia. It defined the boundaries of the new colony, but it included recognition of the rights of the Aboriginal peoples of South Australia. However, even though they had this sort of decree by the king, it was ignored, and they gave land out to people in South Australia and pushed the Aboriginal people off their land, gave it to other people who were actually squatting on it or different things, but they completely disobeyed this decree from the king, this law that was passed. So that's why it's so ironic. Is not actually the best word for it, but it is a travesty of justice that now Aboriginal people say we are the most incarcerated people on the planet. But the people who actually broke the laws of what the king said to do towards Australia have been rewarded with land and status and position within this country. So it's incredible injustice which needs to be addressed. So that is one of the reasons why this year is we're doing the reckoning of justice in this country, to really finally give acknowledgement of the fact that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have been living here for all this time is a fact. And that's why they should be recognised in the Constitution in that unique position that nobody else has in this country. We're all very grateful to be able to live in this country, to allow to come here. But the fact is, they were following laws of justice before the British came. Great number of laws were broken to establish the different colonies, but it's not been properly faced. The facts have not been faced, and it has not been repented for. So there's still the weight of justice is weighing on the psyche of Australia. But when justice, God is determined to do justice and to bring in, from Revelations 21, 1 to 27, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more. For the former things have passed away. And he who was seated on the throne said, Behold, I am making all things new. So that's what we hope, that God will dwell with us all when justice is done. But we have to pass through justice here and all around the world, everywhere, where people think that there's no God above them that they have to give account to. We all were created by something more than ourselves, and there is a God that we have to give account to. But when we can all sort of accept that and pass the course, then God can dwell personally with each one, and we'll follow our conscience, and we can have love and peace in the world. Anyway, that's what we all hope for and we're working for. Anyway, does anyone have any thoughts, comments, or questions about that?
Thank you, Tracy, because there were some of the things that I never knew, like the King William, who gave the decree to recognize the indigenous people, but the people here didn't follow that decree. So that was new to me. Yes. Anyway, Jung, you have a question or comment about what Tracy has? You have to unmute and speak.
Thank you, Tracy. It's very educational what you just gave us a brief about justice. The topic of justice is very big, and it should, like we should include God into it. As you say, you've been talking a lot about God, but the question should be expanded how we provide our justice to our God. Were we fair with God? Were we good with God? Were we follow his law? Or we have done everything opposite of what he said? That make him angry. Now the young Ukraine soldiers, they don't know tomorrow if they still alive because they got to send to the frontier. They face a nuclear power war. They have no future. So the question of justice is not only the past or present, but the future. What the future hold if we continue to offend God, no covenant? God will say, I give up. I have a promise to you. Probably, the adventurer, long time ago, they came to the land with binocular so they can see the land in advance, far long way, when they were on their boat or the ship to conquer the land. So at that time, they had technology. The only problem that we haven't got at that time, few hundred years ago, that people on the land hasn't got technology to see the invaders coming. But the invader, they got binoculars. They can stand on the ship, HMAS or whatever, and they see far distance. So now the topic we got to say, how we gonna please God, because everything comes from God. The light given to people, only God have attributes of justice. It's one of the prayer that I noticed as the light of justice come from God. So he's got the attributes of that. But if he hasn't given us, even he live among us, he live inside us, but he hasn't given us the ideas of justice at all. The equity, the fairness, the fair income, nothing happening. Because, people just don't know what they're doing, as you say. They might be too materialistic. They might be not learn enough. They don't know whatever history and time. So they need more study of the past, study of actually, God will say, why you kill the man who's supposed to come to your land, help you with development of technology, take you out of the bush, feed you, clothe you, educate you, give you civilization. A lot of people will be very happy about that and say, thank you, you are taking me to civilization. But whether you take me to see God, that's a different matter. Civilization with God or with no God. So that is two advanced questions that we need to tackle. Thank you.
Yes, there's a lot of people that somehow think that, Jesus, faith in Jesus is the same as, having faith in European culture. but Jesus didn't wear a tie. And the Aboriginal people did see the boats because they had fires up the coast warning each other. But they also had an attitude, they, like up in the Queensland, when Cook's boat got damaged on the reef, you know, they actually helped them to repair their boat, gave them food, and then they got upset with them because they were taking female turtles, which you're not allowed to do because you're affecting the next generation of food supply and the balance in the nature. So they, you know, and they, you know, the English were very greedy with what they were taking. So, you know, there's a lot of things, you know, Cook's, to his credit, said that the Aboriginal people were the happiest people that he encountered. They didn't ask people to come and say, oh, come here and give us your civilization. They had their civilization. They had a faith, a spirituality to walk lightly on the earth and live for future generations. But they were very happy. They actually were very happy. They had a good life, a certain number of hours getting their food, and then a certain number of hours doing ceremonies, a certain number of hours sharing with each other. They had a good life balance.
Yeah, but I don't really want to narrow down that path because the way that we're running through, this is a session of the Bible, of the interfaith. So we should concentrate on religion, but not politics, because even if now refund the amount of money go to help the people, I don't think it's going to be helpful. The more money we put into any groups will create more trouble, because at the moment, our new project will be get the migrants from overseas to come here, but we haven't got enough people to work. So why, if you say we have people here, enough to work people here, so why we have to make visa easy for people from overseas to obtain, to come to Australia to work here? So we have a work ethic problem here. So therefore we cannot narrow path, our path. We got to talk about religion. We focus on God. And the question is whether we give our justice to the God, our Lord. And he say, I'm wasting of time. I give you all the justice. I give you all the help. I give you all technology. I give you humanity. But now you don't want anything of this. You want to kill each other. You want nuclear power. You want nuclear submarine. You send all the young people to the battlefield, right? And you just put election yes or no. What for? You don't need all this. I am the God. That's what God will say. I am God.
Well, justice is certainly a lot more than just money, about money.
Exactly.
It's about morality. Well, what are we like as a people? It's not just about money and paying back. It's about whether we face up to the truth and we deal with that and we value that. I mean, God wants us to have, as individuals, clear conscience. When we do something wrong, we recognize it and we own up. As a nation, it's the same thing. As a people in a nation, if people are being slaughtered or killed or hurt or in any way around us, then if we are moral people before God, we should care about that. That's wow. You know, these things are important, you know, hands that shed innocent blood, wicked schemes, you know, lying, making false witness. These things are a disturbance to God. And so what type of people are we? That's our thing.
Just said, you see, the covenant God give to people, whether the people follow that covenant and follow his laws and order, if they follow God's law, 10 commandments, they will not do anything like this proverb said. So if they don't do any that, like thing that make God unhappy, then God will bring love and happiness to people,
Yes.
So why rush into the evil? Well, God put 10 commandments to Moses, not telling people to do all these things. And so talk about justice. We give our God, as I see it, or if the history or book or TV or program, whatever, they only have, games that not good for the kids, because they play game on the computer, and all the games are not peaceful game. The game are opposite of to keep peace. So that's a different story. So God will be very unhappy and say, why don't you give me justice? I give you the people that I love justice, but none of you give me justice. And now you want justice from yourself and one another. So it doesn't make any good reason for God to give us justice. Or we will not be awakened to justice. People.
Oh God.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for God, actually.
Anyway, Siva had his hand up too.
You're muted.
What is important that we should understand?
No, don't turn the TV.
God has given us laws
Can you see
which
this?
will make our life
frozen. It is.
peaceful, which will help us to live happily. And one of the laws is justice. So I think what Tracy has given is highlighted the examples or quotations from the Bible that justice is important, and also cited examples of our country where we are living now, Australia, how the injustice is being meted out to the original custodians of this land. And what if we are equitable and fair-minded people, we should be able to recognize and acknowledge that that indigenous people are the traditional owners of this land, and they had their language or languages, spirituality, culture, laws, customs, all these things, whatever we in the other parts of the world had. The only difference was that it was not the same as what we had. Therefore, we decided to call this land terra nullius. That means there's no people in this land. That is a fundamental mistake and injustice. And acknowledge that. On behalf of the people who had come to this land from other countries, we have to acknowledge. We have to say, sorry, I am living on a land that is not mine. I have to acknowledge that. I have to say thank you to those people. And the lives of the people, how they suffered, how they were killed, how they were treated, how they were chained, all these things, we cannot set aside, oh, that is all past, and you have now a money, house to buy things. That is not life. Freedom freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, freedom of choice, that should be there. And to practice their beliefs, their culture, their language, that should be there. So that's probably what Tracy is trying to say. Is there any other comments or questions, Panya, Lala?
Yeah, there are so many things that I didn't know. I learned from Tracy now. So I just, maybe if you can say a bit about this referendum or the coming up, you want to say something about it? Tracy?
Sure. So it's quite simple, really, the referendum. The referendum is about accepting the fact that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were here before anybody else. And that should be in the Constitution, because it was before they made the Constitution, Aboriginal people were asking to be included, but all their requests were ignored. And the people basically thought they were going to die out, but they proved more resilient than was expected. And the second way, when they went around asking in the dialogues around the country, the 13 dialogues, they wanted to do more, but there wasn't enough money. So they asked them, if you want to, do you want to be in the Constitution? And they affirmed again, yes, we do. Then how would you like to be? Do you want to have a symbolic, preamble? Or do you want to be, how would you like to be in the Constitution? And they said, we would like to have a body which will give us the mechanism to be able to have local decision makers, representatives going up to the federal government when they're making laws, that they can have input into those laws and policies. Because at the moment, from 1967, the federal government was allowed to make laws for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, but there is no mechanism to actually have input into those laws. So like the Northern Territory intervention, a blanket policy was put out all through the Northern Territory 15 years ago. We can see that that was an absolute failure. A whole lot of money was wasted, and a whole lot of communities, there were some problems in some communities, but many communities that were doing very well, had very well-functioning health services and were starting to build up and recover from the initial impact of the colonisation. They were starting to recover. In some of those communities, that they were all put into the same boat as those that weren't functioning. And they sent in the federal police and the army, and it had caused even more trauma. And so now the despair, which is a very important part of well-being, I might say, has been, elevated. And so that the voice was a way to be able to have input into laws, that you don't just come in with blanket policies. So the referendum is just to say, yes, we accept that they were here first, and they have asked that the voice is the way that they are within the Constitution, and we stand in solidarity so that governments just can't come in and just say, well, now, okay, well, we're going to have like the old mission days again or something. They could say, do anything they like at the moment. So it's actually, and Parliament will decide how it's sort of going to operate, but it can't disappear. And it's a certain weight. If the Australian sovereignty in this country is spread with the people and the Crown share sovereignty in this country. So when the people say, we stand in solidarity with you, then Aboriginal people won't feel so bullied, bluntly, by the governments, which is what happens today.
Thank you, Trace.
Panya, you have.
This talk is very, very deep. It put me into a train of thoughts, looking at the history of the world and the different countries and the different people who are identified as aborigines. And whereas it is their own land, because before the migrants come in, they are the owners of the land. But when migrants come in, they feel they know better and they take ownership of the land and they claim that they are the administrators, and they don't respect or give the equal status to the original people of the land. This is everywhere, even in my country. We look down upon these people because they are very simple and they haven't learned much from the, they are not exposed to the whole world. So they have their own living. They hunted animals, they grew their potatoes and food, which is, they consider it as their food, and they lived a happy life. People coming over take ownership, and then they feel they are better than the original people, and they are a class of their own, and they start ruling, and they're making laws for everybody. And these poor people, they don't know their rights. They just humble themselves, and they are very scared of the others because they are more knowledgeable, they are more civilized. So this has been going on in many, many, many countries of the world. But right now, people started looking, open their eyes wide and say, who are the original people and how could we treat them in this way, which is not justified? And this is during the colonial rule, where many different nations went and conquered the weaker nations and start setting up their own governments and treated the local people who are also migrants from other countries as, they are second-hand citizens, and they make laws to satisfy their own needs. They come all the way. History is the beautiful story which tells the migration of man, and then the Westerners coming to the East for their gold, gospel, and glory. The Portuguese, Dutch, and the British came to seek for tea in China. So it broadens our mind. And history, man has no ownership of the land. Man is a creation of God who doesn't own anything in this world, for that matter. But he claims that this is my land, my country, and he will bring out the constitution and rule the world, because the mighty one overrules the weak one. So this is the world today we are living in. And then when people who are justified or fair-minded start looking at the original people of the country, who are human beings, they have every right to stay in the country. You are the one who came from somewhere and plant your seed there and say, this is my land. So there's no justice in this world, actually. So that is why we are guided by prophets and holy educators. And we start thinking along justice, and we find people are equal. Whatever they are equal. If I can speak English and my neighbor doesn't mean that they are lower than me or inferior. So this kind of mentality will never give in to others. I have to hold my tight principles. I don't want to sympathize with others. I am what, and I want to control the world. These are things which human nature or human weakness, greed. And that is why we are fighting against our conscience to establish justice in this world. And we lift them up. People who are ignorant, innocent, and they don't know their own rights. It is our duty to educate them. And we are no better. Maybe we have to learn from others. So this is why God created man. And then according to the stories of the Ark of Salvation, where Noah took certain specimens of people, group of people, and that is the exact story happening in the world today. We need an Ark of Salvation, and we are looking for one, and it is somewhere, and we are seekers. But we forget everything else and talk about the material aspects of life, and we try to acquire wealth, build castles in the land, When the earthquake comes, everything goes. The tsunami comes, everything goes. Isn't this the story of God showing man, you have no control over the earth. It's my decision, my world, my creation, and time changes and educates everybody, and time for you to think and ponder what is justice, what is fair play. So I'm very glad this topic is very deep sighted, and maybe my expression wasn't too clear, but I learned a lot from this topic of justice. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you. No, your expression was very clear.
Thank you.
Okay.
And it's, Jesus said, like he stood beside the weak and marginalized. That was really practicing justice.
Right.
Even the thing of the Good Samaritan story, the people in the Pharisee and the high priest, they walked on the other side. They didn't want to engage, but the Samaritan that was considered not so great in the, the sort of the well-educated of the law, but practice, he did the right thing. So it's really the how we actually live is, the important thing. And God is wanting to be with each person and each family's conscience. That's where God wants to dwell. And I hope that, we're seeing very clearly with Russia, some of the propaganda that's been said. But that was the type of propaganda that was said, when people went out from Europe in past. Oh, blah, blah. Any justification. It was just all propaganda. The Ukrainians didn't say, oh, Russia, please come in. We want to be bombed. It's an injustice. Anyway, Colin.
May I ask the newcomers, Halala, Kumari, Sinasamy, and the lady from, do you have a question or comment? Halala?
I have just a comment.
Yes.
Okay. My English is not very good, because I'm in a French speaker country and it is not easy to learn English here. I think that many people who are not enlightened by this new world view have a different concept of this word called justice. Everywhere else in the world, and particularly where I live in Chad, in the African continent, you can never go out without encountering injustice. And I also believe that justice begins at home too. With every man who are in the life. If we have a good concept of this word we call it justice, he will doing the best things in this world. And it is why I think that it is why we teaching the faith of Baha'u'llah with every man here, because we want to create a world with a great justice. All the things that I want to say, and I learn more from you, from your various intervention, and thank you for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Halala from Chad. The first time he joined, I think my brother Jiva from Canada must have invited. But it is glad to hear from someone from that part of the world where most of the people were subjected to injustice for generations. Thank you. And my sister from Swaziland, do you want to say anything? I didn't get the name properly. Lulu, are you there? Kumari Sinasamy. Okay, now I think Colin wants to say something. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tracy. I just had a thought that the voice proposal, I guess you explained it so everyone understands that the Indigenous people of Australia are asking for a voice. And I think that connects a lot with justice, because if you imagine, if I park my car on someone's foot, they want to have a voice. They want to be able to say, you've got your car parked on my foot, and they're hoping that I'll hear them. Now, the Aborigines have a culture of listening, and so they'll sit in a circle and they might be silent for a long time, and they're listening in a spiritual way, and then slowly they'll be talking as well. So it's a culture of listening, not necessarily of asserting themselves. Whereas our culture here is probably more, if we can assert ourselves, that's the main thing. It doesn't matter if we're listening or not. And I think that's where the injustice is. And so the voice is quite symbolic. All the ways that we've got our car parked on their feet, where they need a voice to be able to just say that that's happening.
Thank you. That's a very good analogy.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I let Tracy know about something? It was on a public program on a TV on Monday night, just happened in last few days. There was an interview between a journalist of one of the major channel TV program, talk about the referendum and yes and no with all the young Aboriginal. And some of the young Aboriginal, they said that they will vote for no. So I don't know how much I understand about history and anything that relevant to their life, but for them, they would say that because they were on TVs, interview reporting, public programs, so everybody can open a channel and look at it. And they said for referendum, we say no. So actually,
That's because it's not enough for them and they want a
yeah.
treaty.
So the leader will need to educate them, because if the vote result coming out and you see majority say no, it's not all because other people are doing it. So you know the leader need to look into their own group, educate them, so they know what's going on, yes or no, whatever, and whether the funding is important for them, because at the moment they have an easy life. As long as they can go to uni, as long as they go to TAFE, as long as they get a good job seeker allowance, they're happy. They're very happy.
Well, I thank you, Young, because I think we are trying to see the economy of Indigenous people's life. That is not what is being questioned or at stake. It is their rights, the justice, spirituality, their culture, their language, their freedom. This is entirely different. So I think you have expressed, and there are people who say no to that. That is what the referendum means. We have to have our own voice. So that's fairly all right. But if collectively as humanity, if we are going in the right direction, then, and if we are following God's guidance, then the right thing will be done. And we don't have to say which one is right. They can their own judgment. And I want our sister from Malawi, Swaziland. Are you there? You have to unmute and talk. Oksabili Zulu.
Hi, Alapa.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. With the justice part, for us here in Africa, I think it's really affecting, especially in our homes. The Baha'i faith is teaching about the equality of men and women, and it's still very difficult to apply to us. There is a lot of injustice there. Okay, let me stop there for now.
Yes, thank you. I can understand how different segments of the society are suffering in different ways and victimized by dominant people in the world. And the last quotation from Tracy was the new what is it?
From Revelations.
Yes.
Not
we
here,
may-
WhatsApp. You share the document.
So the new heaven.
New heaven and a new earth.
Yes. This one, right?
Yes.
Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes." I have to believe, we have to trust that this will happen, and it is every one of us responsibility, whether as the perpetrator or as a victim, to take the right steps to change this world. So wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, no pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. And he who was seated on the throne said, "Behold, I am making all things new." So it is happening, but we individually, we have our own responsibility. And we had to awaken our own conscience and help change the world. We see, this is why, I mean, one of the things that we said that we have to transcend differences and harmonize perspectives. We don't want to go into argument and altercation saying that I'm right, she is wrong, he is right, she is wrong. We want to bring common understanding, and the purpose of our interfaith meeting is one of the purposes that. So hopefully we will head towards that. And if there's no other new comments, Sinasamy, Kumari Sinasamy, anyone else? And if you, Tracy, have a final word, we can close with that.
I just wish blessing on everyone, that we can really experience that God does want to wipe away the tears from our eyes. And if we sincerely cry for this world, we are really close to God, because God is a parent of love and does care. And there are some things that God cannot interfere with, but that doesn't mean we're alone in it, that God is with us. And I hope that we can all experience that, and that we are working with God to bring about a better world for all.
Tracy, if I may ask, are there any movies, cinema movies about this Aboriginal people and the exploitation. I remember watching one, the fence-free rabbit, long ago.
Yes, yes.
So
the
are
rapid
there
proof
any,
fence.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting movie about this kind of prejudice against the traditional, the particular Aboriginal people, and they're trying to create a different society because they are mixed with the whites. And so that was very interesting. And I wish there are more movies which we can watch to learn from this kind of exploitation and the feelings of the local Aboriginal people, how they strive to have their freedom. Where you don't like to be imprisoned in someone's culture, so they feel the right and free. So I wish there are movies which we can help each other to watch and learn.
She can put it on the interfaith group.
Yes.
And this is
yes, but if I'll put something, if you go here, there's some information. If you, it's not going to. Or even From the Heart. Yes23.com.au has got different things, or if you look up the Uluru Statement, there's different films and different ways that you can get more understanding. But there's a lot more understanding coming out. And because it's something that's, there's a book called, Voices from the Soul, that there's something within the Australian consciousness that knows something's not right. There's a shadow, and people of awareness are just, they know that. And so that there's a, discovering of the other, part of justice is to know what the other person, that when I have done something or spoken something, there's an impact. When you're immature, you don't notice. As you mature, you realize, you notice. The same thing goes for a nation. As Australia is maturing, that it becomes more aware of what Aboriginal people experienced when a gun was pointed at them, when they were taken away, families were split up unnecessarily, all these terrible things. There was an insensitivity, but now there is a much greater awareness that these things, we have to understand, have empathy, put ourselves into the shoes of somebody else. That awareness is becoming much greater.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Okay.
Thank you, Tracy. It's the injustice is everywhere, like sister from Swaziland said, it is not only in Africa, it is everywhere. So we have to, I think we have to become strong and fight for our own right. I think it is.
Yes.
As Tracy said, as we become mature, we become more aware of how much injustice is being done. But it is.
Shall we unite together? We unite together and work towards better.
Work towards, yes.
Yes.
It is very difficult to change. It is a long process.
Even with your awareness.
You are not alone in Africa. It is happening everywhere. Equality. We are with you.
Yes.
Thank you. This is so motivating, and I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
That's good. That's good. And even as we mature, we can take God's hand and pray. We pray for God's justice and God's sovereignty to come over the whole world. if we really had God's sovereignty over the whole world, we would be aware that maybe I'm like the left foot of God and you are like the right foot, but we are part of one body.
Mhm.
So what happens to one part of the body is happening to all of the body. If you pull one hair, it hurts. And not more than just your head feels that pain. But we are God's body. We are really God's body. So the more we respect each other and we want for the justice for all and for the other, then we will all actually have justice and we will all find peace and happiness.
That's right. We should share and do something for the others who are suffering. Not to sit and, have dialogues, but to attempt to change or do some, like the lady has been exploited or chased out of the house, you provide the shelter and give her a helping hand and say, don't worry, I'm here. This kind of action, like love is in the hearts, love is in our hearts. But without using that love, we don't show the love to each other, it's not going to be used as an instrument of attraction to help each other and be kind to each other. So the women also should take their rights. They should educate themselves. They should prepare themselves before marriage. See, they cannot be exploited anymore. It's no more child marriage, or when a child is young, the others have a right over her. So the mothers must be educated and train the children and say, no marriage, no man in your life until you can stand on your own feet. There are two things. One is ignorance. Ignorance, that means you don't know your rights. So learn to develop your qualities. Once you know, you don't allow others to exploit you. The other one is victimization, but the other one is you don't know your right as a woman. So we try to educate each other, help each other. An example. So we join these women's groups, and work together, learn the protection, the law, which is for women, and go out of the country, work in common pools. All this, the courage should come from within us. And we have to have sisters who will accommodate each other, encourage each other. I'm sure you have fought all the way throughout your life, the racial problems and all. Now you are very well aware, you joined this forum. Yeah, so we should educate each other, bring up our generation in the right way. There is a straight path and a crooked path. So we should learn all this.
Thank you.
I know.
Yes. Thank you, Panya. And Jung, you have raised your hand. Can you be brief? And then we can, if there's a question, then Tracy can answer and we can close.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Panja. Don't you know that Tracy comes from a privileged group? talk about the movie Rabbit Proof Fencing. The rabbit proof fencing, the reason why we have the fencing is understood. You look in an optimistic way, happy way, because the rabbit, they ate so much crop and harvest, and they destroy the harvest, and they eat all the good nutrition, grains and everything. So they make the village become lack of food. Therefore, we need to build a fence. So if you look into that sort of happy way, you can see that actually the Australian people are very clever, and the farmer, they even get the rabbit and get, I don't know how they die, but use their fur to make the hat for the cowboys. Cowboys. So it's very productive story. So why people just only look into the sad side of any story, but don't look into the happy side or productive side of the story. So because you are so far, you don't know that our speaker come from a very privileged group. And so actually we don't need all that action like you suggested, because already been done
There's
Even
no,
like a few hundred years ago.
there's no privileged group. There are right people who thinks the right way and doing the right things, and there are the people who don't know what is right. Tracy is the person who is thinking in the right direction and trying to change the world, like what we are trying to do by changing ourselves and by helping others. She is not, I mean, I don't know if she is privileged. Are you saying that you are not privileged?
I am a humble servant of God.
So you are not privileged, right?
You're very privileged.
Because if God give me privileges, mean that it's unfair to other human beings.
No,
And
no.
because God loves everyone,
Yes,
God loves everyone in His own sense. So
No,
therefore, we are equal.
yes, that is what we are trying to bring about. So there's no a privileged one. If people consider themselves to be privileged, let them consider. But we are trying to bring the equality and
Yeah.
justice and fairness to the society by being ourselves first, the right conduct, to be fair ourselves. And in the same way, we try the society to come. It's a mutual thing. They go parallel. It is not that I sit here and I want to change the world, or the world is trying to change me. It is together. So either we are part of it, collectively trying to change.
And also,
Yes.
and also we are changing. We are not perfect. We are also trying to improve ourselves, though we say we are not 100% doing the right thing. So we are learning and trying to change ourselves to be better people. That is how I take it. And everyone is changing day by day.
Yeah, you are Jung, you are right in one sense. Everything that is happening is for good. So in that sense, we can see good in everything. If you want us to see the good in the rabbit-proof fence, yes, because if we see what is the end, we should be happy for whatever we have and what we go through. Everything is for good. But as an individual with some conscience, we should be fair. That fairness is not on only economic side of it, not only on material side of it, emotional, spiritual, cultural, in every aspect of him. More importantly, the spiritual and emotional and psychological side of it. Though economical and material advancement is equally important, but that is more important. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Tracy. It is
Thank you,
very-
Thank
Halala, and thank
you.
you,
God
Octagon
bless
Bali.
you.
Dr. Vamali.
Come and join us every week. Thank you, Jiva, for inviting.
Thank you, Tracy.
I'll be with you. Thank
It's
you
a
so
very
much.
enlightening.
Thank you, Yung, Panja.
Thank you,
See
everyone.
you.
We're all
Bye.
works in progress.
Yes.
God's work.
Yeah, we are trying to improve.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye, sister.